Welcome everybody to Forza Horizon 4, and today we're taking a look at the 2011 McLaren 12C Coupé. Now this was produced between 2011 and 2014, and this was the first ever production car wholly designed and built by McLaren, and was their first production car since the McLaren F1 that finished production 13 years earlier. And it was initially known as the MP4-12C, but that by the end of the year of 2012 it was reduced just to 12C, which is better because it was a lot less of a mouthful. And it also has a chassis that is based on an F1 style one-piece carbon fibre tub, which means that it only weighs 176 pounds, so that's one theme of this car, is it's extremely rather lightweight. It also has dihedral doors and a 7-speed dual clutch transmission. So speaking of weight, this car only weighs 3,031 pounds, which is impressive when you consider this has a lot of power. It's got those dihedral doors, it's hardly a small car, and it's got a lot of engineering and technology going on underneath. So very impressive that we've kept it to that kind of weight, especially in comparison to other vehicles in the same class, which usually weigh a lot more than this. So speaking of doors, there they are, which is one of the few impressive things in terms of craziness that is to go with this car. It's one of the few things about this car that is like other vehicles. Interior wise, it's very ergonomic, it's very clean, it's very well put together, and everything's where you expect it to be. You can see out of the windows clearly, you can see out the back windows as well, which I know might sound weird, but a lot of cars in this class aren't quite as friendly towards the people that are driving it or a passenger in it as you'd expect. And speaking of stuff underneath, it's got a pretty impressive engine, to be honest, especially in terms of horsepower at 592, and it also has 442 pounds-feet of torque from a 3.8 litre twin turbocharged V8 engine. So small capacity V8, which is pretty rare nowadays. It's usually either small capacity V6s or inline 4 engines. It's very rare we get a small capacity V8. Though obviously Mercedes-Benz's are in more towards that with their 4-litre V8s, but this is still really rather small. It also has a rev limit of 8,500 RPM, so a really rather high revving V8, which again, only really the likes of Ferrari are known for doing that kind of thing. And even has a boot, which again isn't too much to ask, especially since you can get a fair bit in there. Though again, cars in this class generally don't have that, which goes a long way to making this car easily one of the more user-friendly vehicles. You could easily daily this, quite frankly, because like I said, you can see out of it easily. It's not the biggest of cars, it's got a boot, it's got a suspension that changes depending on how you're driving it. If you drive it harder, it gets stiffer. If you're driving it normally, then it will be a comfy car to drive. So it's pretty practical in that regards. But obviously, being a supercar, it's also got to drive really well as well. So let's get out onto the open road and see just what it can do. So with all that technology under the hood and under the car itself, this is a fairly impressive driver's car. It's like I said, really rather lightweight, so the fact it's only got less than 600 horsepower really does not make any difference, because an Audi R8 from I think last year or the year before that had around 600 horsepower, but that weighs more than this because it has all-wheel drive, and Audis do tend to weigh a fair bit anyway. So this is incredible in terms of how little it actually weighs, which means that it can make the most of that horsepower and torque, meaning it can get from 0 to 60 in 3.3 seconds, 0 to 100 in 6.5 seconds, and going to a top speed of 207 miles an hour. Though on this game you can actually get it up to more than that. I've had it around 213 before, but nonetheless that is still really, really impressive, especially again because it's got less than 600 horsepower. It's generally cars in the 700 800 range are getting up to that kind of top speed. So really impressive in terms of acceleration, and it's also really impressive in terms of handling as well. That spoiler comes up and down depending on the speed you've got to provide extra downforce. And the suspension, you can feel it working, because if you drive normally it's fairly stable, but when you get it hard, using it more and more in terms of G-forces and getting it around corners as fast as possible, you can feel it stiffening up and getting all the better for it in terms of handling. So yeah, it's impressive in terms of engineering and everything. And yeah, it is a car that is nice to drive, but combined with the looks, the engine noise isn't all that great. It's fairly dull, to be honest. It does not evoke any kind of excitement as far as I'm concerned, which again goes in hands with the looks, which again I find really rather dull. It's not ugly by any means. Certainly wouldn't, hate to see it on my driveway, but it wouldn't, entice me to drive it because, yeah, it just does not look as good as other supercars or sports cars that we've had since the beginning of 2010 and onwards. We've had plenty of other supercars that have looked far better than this, and yeah, it just lacks that sense of fun, that sense of excitement to it, that sense of passion, really, to put another words to it. There's no doubting that it's an impressive vehicle to drive, and it's really quick, it handles great, it's practical, it's even got a decent amount of ground clearance to help deal with ordinary roads. But in terms of pure excitement and enjoyability, it's just really not up there. It just doesn't excite me in any way. Granted, that is an opinion, and I'm fairly sure that there's going to be people out there that do enjoy this car, do get excitement out of it, do like the looks of it, and that's perfectly fine. Because I do, at the end of the day, respect this car in terms of what it can do and in terms of performance and handling. But yeah, when it comes to do I enjoy this car? Do I want to go and drive this car? Do I, want to choose it over other vehicles that are in the same kind of class as it or like it in terms of horsepower and performance? And the answer is no, really. That's it. I do prefer over McLarens, like the 720S and the like. But for me, this, though it is McLaren's first car for a long time after the F1, does feel like playing it a little bit safe. But at the end of the day, it did do really well in terms of sales, and did get McLaren off the ground again after a long time away from making production vehicles. So yeah, it did obviously help them come out with better cars after this. But yeah, just don't find it exciting or enjoyable enough to really recommend it. But if you're after a car that is easy to drive and is fairly quick, then this is a car for you. But yeah, there are definitely better cars out there that can do the same kind of things as this while looking a whole lot better. Nonetheless, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.